Welcome to Muse and Metrics Audio Summit. This is your host, Philippa Burgess. Get ready to be inspired as we dive into discussions with 8 of my fellow Google Women Techmakers ambassadors. Women Techmakers International Women's Day theme this year is Dare to Be, which runs parallel to the United Nations theme, Embrace Equity. Let's celebrate the achievements of these amazing women and women everywhere, and be motivated to continue pushing for change. Our guest speakers join us from Canada, Germany, India, the UK, and the United States, with countries and regions of origin which include Asia, Africa, Europe, North America, and South Asia. Their roles include software developer, computer scientist, data analyst, computer engineer, PhD candidate, revenue operations, talent management, and web developer, among other skills and specializations. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hello, my name is Lubna Rasheed, and I am a Women Techmakers ambassador based in Toronto, Canada. I am a software engineer at Cisco Systems, and I have been at Cisco for the last 10 years, working in multiple roles across enterprise networking, developer experience, service provider, and more recently within the cloud and networking security business group. Cisco is a computer networking company. We ideally produce routers and switches that we sell directly to businesses. So essentially, Cisco is what powers the internet that you're all using today. So I graduated from Carleton University in Ottawa, Ontario, with a bachelor's in computer systems engineering, and initially started off in the service provider team at Cisco as a software development engineer. And I worked on a feature called MPLS LDP CSC. From there, I then pivoted to working in QA roles for Cisco and worked on the Cisco NXOS operating system. And after that, I moved into the developer experience team, where I had the opportunity to work on this fabulous product called PyATS, which we worked on very hard and worked towards releasing it through Cisco DevNet to the customers and made it open source as well. Since then, I have pivoted into working with enterprise networking software, the Cisco IOS XC operating system, and I currently work within the cloud and network security business group, working on Cisco Umbrella. One of the things that since as businesses move towards adopting the cloud and moving their entire infrastructure and architectures towards the cloud, one aspect that sometimes does not always get focused on is the security of your cloud and your infrastructure. So definitely I would urge anyone who's doing cloud deployments, working within DevOps, to kind of look at, maybe DevSecOps or AppSecOps to try to build your applications to be secure from the get-go. Also incorporate that layer of security within your cloud infrastructure. Try to educate yourself as well on resources. There's tons of resources out there that are available for anyone to consume, to learn in case they're new to this topic. So definitely something to kind of get into the security mindset, to build your applications, to build your deployments with that little, piece of security to it, essentially. With respect to resources out there, just a little plug that the ISC2 does have a certified in cyber course that is actually free for 2023 to take part in, and I can actually share that link if anyone is interested in participating and just kind of learning about cybersecurity a little bit. In addition to that, Cisco also has a course under its website called Skills for All, which has an introduction to cybersecurity, which would be another starting point for anyone who's new to the field that just wants to learn more.
I love it. And the answer is yes, because one of my goals for this year, as I've talked about, is YouTube. And I'm really wanting to bring my journey of learning data science and computer science to YouTube to sort of say, hey, if I can learn this, anybody can learn this. Like, I'm going to go through this learning journey with you. And obviously, I can't take all the courses and do all the things, but I want to be a resource to point to and make people aware of these wonderful, free, low-cost classes. I do a ton of content on my main channel about graduate student or college student discounts, freebies, opportunities. And so this also, all of this sort of computer science, data science information that I can also share with people for how they access these classes is totally in my lane. So I will get all that information and make sure that our audience is aware of it and will readily, like I said, happily point to it, because I think these are great opportunities that people can take advantage of. And that's one of the things I really love about tech. I mean, again, levels. I mean, there's so much that is available for free, low cost, discounted, or you can make significant investments and making an investment in a second master's degree. I mean, so information
Exactly.
is out there at all levels that we can participate in. And my master's program doesn't include everything I want to learn. So I'm doing a ton of self-study to get to be the best version of my specific set of interests. And there's a huge piece of it that's part of the academic track, but there's quite a bit of it that I know that I want in tech that is not part of it, that like I want to learn Python and SQL and just Tableau, Power BI, like everything that I'm just wanting to begin in the data visualization field. And so I want to be, by the end of this year, I want to be a competent data visualizer.
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly my point about tech as well. Like I personally believe like tech is for everyone. It doesn't matter what background you come from, like, whether you studied, biology or you're coming from a traditional, you've done bachelor's degree in engineering, whatever your background is, I think tech is for everyone because of the resources available. Whether you want to start something free, you go on YouTube or even just search for free courses online. And then, as you have the capability or if you have the requirement, also do those investments and, maybe getting a bachelor's, a master's, a boot camp, a paid boot camp, or something of that sort. So that is a really great aspect about tech, is that resources are available at every stage, like we mentioned. And also, the other thing I really like about tech is there is a community around tech. Like if you're ever looking for support or resources, like there are Discords, there's Slack channels, there's, you could even go post on Reddit for that matter, find the topic that you're looking for. If you have questions on, for example, FPG controller or for something, they have like, r slash whatever you're looking for. Essentially, you could go there, post your question. People would, people can answer. People can downvote you too, but I mean, at least there's some resources out there who could help. And of course, Stack Overflow as well has been a big resource for me as a programmer in my early days. So definitely, there's a huge community that helps you kind of get started, get off the ground. If you have questions, sometimes you'll find that a person had the same issue 8 years ago as you, and you look at it and be like, okay, 8 years ago, this person had this question and this is how they solved it. Someone answered it, but it's helping you today, so many years later, for instance. So I definitely think that the community aspect is super helpful to those getting in, to those in the industry and staying in the industry. So definitely really appreciate that aspect for anyone trying to, I think it's one of my draws and stay, something that helps you stay in the industry as well over time.
So you talk about that sense of belonging, because I think that that's a theme of International Women's Day is this sense of, hey, we're all in this together, and there's issues. We've made progress, but there's still things that need to be addressed around the world and in workplace culture and in our ability to connect and support each other. And so there's the International Women's Day part of it, but Women's Techmakers is giving us the opportunity to have a voice and to not only connect, empower, encourage each other, but speak out and invite other people and really further and foster that sense of belonging. And so there's a belonging in these online communities, but there's also other ways that we belong. And I think we gravitate to places where we have a sense of belonging. And we
Absolutely.
are more inclined to reject or walk away from or be frustrated by places that don't want to include us and don't give us that sense of welcoming or belonging. So I think belonging is a really big theme in success. And actually something I read that really resonated with me a while ago was that heartbreak is a break in belonging. And so you break, the relationship breaks and suddenly you lost a sense of identity, a sense of belonging. And the way to heal from heartbreak is to reestablish your sense of belonging. And whether that's through family, friends, hobbies, activities, or even just going to places where there's a sense of community where you feel welcome is one of the fastest ways to heal your heart. And it's also, we've been talking in other conversations here about language and learning a language and how people can either be super encouraging and say, oh, we love that you're learning our language and help you, or they can be incredibly dismissive and use complicated technical language that's and lots of idioms and just be very dismissive of the fact that you don't speak this perfectly, you're not one of us, go away. Like, we're not even going to acknowledge that you're trying and that you're trying to learn. And so I think that those experiences really shape people in how they're drawn to something or they want to run away from things.
Absolutely. And I completely agree about language. I'm also a facilitator for the Google I Remarkable program. So within that program as well, a theme that we bring up and also like to remind our participants is that while you may be, a person who speaks the language of the majority in your workplace, English, Spanish, whatever it may be, French, if there is someone who does not speak the language of majority, try to also hold that extra space for them to give them, that confidence to kind of, because they're trying, give them that space to kind of articulate their point. If they might be struggling with it, they might not feel confident enough to actually speak out and talk about it, especially because we're coming from technical backgrounds. Sometimes you do need to talk to explain your thought process or your algorithm or whatever it may be. So try to hold space to give them that time to articulate, just to make them feel included and give them that sense of belonging as well. That's very important in tech, especially if there's a person who does not speak that language of majority. So yeah, that's something as well that, just to your point, I remembered that it's something that we mentioned within the I Am Remarkable program as well in those workshops.
Yep. And I think even in tech, when people are learning tech, there is one of the things that unique to tech, or maybe not unique to tech, I don't know, that's my experience, is there's parts of it that, and whether it's programming it or whether it's just using the software, where you think, I'm never going to learn this. I'm never going to learn this. I oftentimes have this experience in martial arts and learning forms as well. And then you learn it, and then you get it, and then you get on to the next thing. And sometimes I'll approach a project where I will think, oh, this is easily done. I'll get this done in 7 hours. And then I fall down a hole, and 13 hours later, I'm still at the starting point going, wait, why can't I figure this out?
I think, and that's with anything, I would say. One thing about tech is, I would encourage people to try to get comfortable with working with things that you don't know 100%, because that's kind of what tech and innovation is all about. Maybe you're working on a project that's using a new framework, a new language, maybe it's just a whole new product that you need to deploy or work on, and you're like, I've never seen this before, I need to learn this from scratch today and figure it all out. But take your time, try to understand it. Just like you said, like I thought it would take me 7 hours, and 6 hours later or 13 hours later, you're still like, wait, I don't fully get it. But it takes time to kind of to understand it. So definitely don't give up when you're in that situation. Try to get comfortable with, and get comfortable with not knowing everything that you're working on 100%. So you might be working on new stuff every month, every week. So get comfortable with that. Don't look at it as, oh my God, I can't do this. Don't be discouraged, essentially. Try to keep going, essentially, and you're going to get there eventually. And there's always people around who will help and support if you're stuck.
Yes, and I think that that's a big thing that I have learned, is knowing who to ask for help from. Sometimes it's asking the internet or YouTube. I am so grateful to so many creators who have shared their expertise, or hey, I figured this out, or here's a common problem, or like you said, whether it's a subreddit group or just the internets have all sorts of answers, and some of them are from 8 years ago. We're not the first one that went through that particular challenge, so that these challenges have been experienced by other people. We're not alone in this.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely don't hold back. Like, keep going, keep trying, and get as much support as you can. Like, there's people somewhere who would want to help and support.
Yes. So I think that that's a big part of it. So I'm brand new to learning Python, and I started live streaming my learning. Google has a course that's free and Creative Commons, so I felt comfortable sharing it publicly and just watching. And it was really good for myself, because I was like, it was a committed hour that I was like, I'm here and I'm going to go through it. You can go through it with me.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. It does take some time to get there. And just a reminder that everyone was a beginner at some point in their life. Even if they seem like they're the expert right now, at some point they had to start from scratch too. And it doesn't matter if it took them 1 hour, it took you 2 days to do it. Everyone learns at a different pace, but you're going to get there, and just don't be discouraged. Keep going. And, you'll be able to find the resources to figure it out.
Yes. And sometimes when we see people who seem like they have a running start, often they do, like, hey, this is what their parents do. There was something that, or they've been just doing it for a really long time. And, they were talking about, what's that book, Freakonomics. and it talked about how hockey players, most of them were born in January, February, and March, and
Really?
they were like, well, why is that? And they realized that when somebody at that age, when they start at like 2 and 3 years old, and you know this being in Canada, like hockey is a
Yes.
big thing. So
it's like our national thing.
Yes, I remember. I have a lot of family in Canada. I remember as a child, I'd be out there and they'd vite, vite, vite.
Allez, allez, allez.
And they would. So in the professional arena, it's because the cutoff date was December 31st. So if you were born on January 1st, you were the biggest kid. And if you were born on December 31st, you were the runt.
And so the youngest one.
They basically were like, oh, we're going to pick the biggest kids and we're going to perceive them as being better. So we're going to give them more training. We're going to give them more ice time. And guess what? A year later, they were better than everyone else. And then 3 years later, now they're 6, nobody can compete with them.
Wow. Yeah. So that does that, just to recognize that privilege of the time that they were born, it kind of aided them in being better than their peers potentially.
And so then as they go through life, everybody's like, oh, well, these are the kids that they're the best. So we are going to continue to invest in them in ways where we'll not invest in the other kids. And so now you've got a 15-year-old, 17-year-old, and they're really good. Like they're being recruited and on a path to be professional. But it's not to say that that person was born that way as much as they were cultivated that way. And so a lot of times if you'll see people who are teenagers, early 20s, doing really great things, but don't forget they had some time into that. They had a runway.
Exactly. Like always try to recognize your own privilege as well, and lend a hand to those who don't have it is what I say.
That's incredible. And I think a lot of people I see, like in cultural divides too, is I talk to a lot of, I'll call it Americans, but I'm going to also sort of say, not to put a race on it, but I'll put a race on it. I talk to a lot of white Americans who are math afraid and math traumatized. And they've really they're like, I don't like math. I don't know how to do math. And it's so kind of become acceptable in that they think there's something wrong with themselves. And I'm like, no, you were just really badly taught. Like you weren't taught this well. And so then they spend their whole life running away from it. And because
that's not good.
No, and not only is it not good, but just even in talking about, I mean, obviously as a world, we want to get along and we're talking about International Women's Day, but just talking from a point of national security, America's like, we need to compete in the future. They've launched a whole program called You Belong in STEM about that sense of belonging and welcoming kids and having kids have a better math, science, engineering, technology experience because they realize they're doing it so badly. And if the culture isn't nurtured at home, like I have a father who is both an accountant and an engineer. I love math.
Wow.
I grew up loving math because he drilled me on my times tables. So the point that by the time I got to algebra, I was like, oh yeah, I can, like these calculations I can do in my head. I was never math afraid because I was so supported in math at home. But not everybody, I realize that that's part of privilege. Like that was a huge privilege. And so we as a society, whether it's a North American society or as just a world, because not everybody is going to have that just math or science or tech support to just be better at helping people understand. If you can understand this, there's nothing wrong with you.
Exactly. Like, try to make it more inclusive. Like try to help out if someone is struggling with it and it's something that by all means, like, take 10 minutes extra to explain something to them. Just ask them what's bothering them, why is it difficult, and then try to help them work through it in case because recognize your own privilege that this is simple to me because of potentially, for instance, like you're saying, math was a big theme in your household growing up, but it may not have been the case for other folks. So essentially, if you meet someone that way, take the time to kind of help them out. So, help one, help 100, essentially. Again, I do understand that a lot of the basic math calculations formulas are taken care of by computers, or I could, pull up an app on my phone that would do it. But you kind of have to understand that even the app on your phone that's doing that for you, for instance, or even if you're just looking at, like, I live in Canada, so checking the weather every day is a super important thing to know what you're wearing, what kind of coat you need to grab this morning if you're stepping out. So even just kind of looking at that app, that there's so much science and math that kind of went into that app to kind of, measure, to do the measurements for the weather, to kind of make a prediction, to kind of put that, the code and the software that want to put it onto the app, the internet that actually brought that information to me, just so that I could decide what coat to wear to go out of my house. Like, that's such a small thing that no one even pays attention to. But there is so much science that went into that, just that little basic thing. There are things that you use every single day that, you may not realize about how much technology or science or math went into putting that together. So I don't think it's something that you think about every single day. Like, you don't necessarily use it, but even just my keyboard, my monitor, just logging into, my emails and checking an email or getting on a call with a colleague, every single thing right there is all science and math in the background, which, it's not immediately aware, but you wouldn't be able to do your work, or you wouldn't be able to go to your class, or communicate with other folks if that stuff did not exist, essentially. So I guess that's kind of my take on it, that there are things that we take for granted every day that we use every day and rely on every single day, and that's all been created by math and science, essentially, in a way.
Mm-hmm. And also, this was last semester was the first semester that I really took a science degree course, and it took me about 6 weeks to figure out what was the difference between art and science as a path of study. And one of the things that was revealed to me, and I was like, oh, it took me a minute to get it, was how to present a paper, a scientific paper, versus an English or other type of paper. And it was, what is the field of, what's the purpose? What's the study area? What was my methodology? What did I do? What were my results? What's my discussion of my results? And that the whole purpose of it was that I have a scope of an area that I'm looking to investigate. And then I did a few certain things in a certain order with a certain set of tools. And then I got a result. And that what I did now needs to be completely replicatable for anybody else to take my study and say, oh, I'm going to do the same thing. And in theory, I should be able to do exactly what you did. And I should be able to follow all the steps of what you did and get the same result. Or based on your notes and your discussion, I can improve on things you did. And then I can have a new innovation or a new discovery, or just improve the process and what you laid out. And so I realized how collaborative science is, that every paper is designed for other people to build off of it. So not only can they copy it and redo it on their own, based on your very detailed instruction, but that they could then innovate from it based on your commentary and discussions of what worked, what didn't work, what you do better next time. And that sense that science is collaborative and meant to be replicatable was a new concept for me.
I agree 100%. Definitely, I think science in its own, it's basically, if you've followed the procedure, you've kind of, investigated a certain topic, you have a purpose of something that you're looking for, and then you kind of put together those results and say, this is kind of what I found, this is how you can use what I found. Essentially, there's always an application element to it of whatever the study may be. There's an application of how you could use it. So it's definitely a way that other people could use that application to your point, to build off of that. And that's kind of where I find writing code or software is kind of like a good mix between application science and art, in a sense, because you can create so much when you're writing code. Like, you can create projects that do the silliest of things, like, just a silly Python package that just, prints out different characters on the screen, for instance, or something that does something super complicated that does an entire trading application. It's a bot that goes in and finds stocks that you want to buy and sell at certain times. A complete trading bot can be coded. So I think there is an element of art there too, because you're kind of creating something from scratch. It can be beautiful. It can be, something really wonderful that you use. And it's also science because there's an application for it as well. So I think writing, like programming, is a good mix of science and art in my perspective.
Because you are creating things that never existed before. And that's the art part of it, is that or you're reorganizing information and you're putting it together with your own point of view and making it for this moment. That's another thing about I always found about art is that you're reflecting something that's happening in society. And there's
Exactly. Yeah.
so even when you're creating stories about things that happened in the past, you're bringing into it the filter of today, the zeitgeist of today, the story of today. And technology is the same. What problems are we solving in today's society? And today, like there is this purposefulness that needs to address the moment.
Absolutely, because you're using technology, using the applications of the science per se to kind of solve a problem. And while doing so, you're also creating something brand new potentially, which could be a work of art.
And being aware about society and what the needs of society are, i.e., why is this new and different? Why is this helping solve a problem that we need solved in today's epoch, so to speak?
Sure.
So one thing I'm seeing a lot is that we as a society, like the last 20 years, 25 years, it was about, and I'm talking just like the everybody, it was about digital literacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe so strongly that the next, call it 25 years, call it just now, everything's moving so quickly. It's data literacy. Like we all need. So there's these roles of women in tech and people like yourself, where you can say, my job as an engineer, as a software person, is very focused and specific. And I have this part of my role, even though my role will only continue to evolve. I think more and more jobs are going to need to put various aspects of those hats on in their roles.
For sure. I definitely agree. It's definitely for a person's future skill set, it would be a lot better for them to be more literate in technology. There's lots of resources out there for people to kind of ramp up. I know a lot of senior folks as well. It is a little bit getting a little bit more difficult for them to kind of keep up with changing technology. So I do think as engineers and developers, that's something to keep in mind, is to try to make your products or solutions that you're putting out there, try to make them as accessible and simple to use so that it's not difficult to onboard somebody, when they're trying to use your technology. So I feel terrible when I hear that. I'm like, oh, that's it's we're making all these products and these tools that can help society, but also like there's this huge segment of the society in general who are not able to consume it. So and I'm like, oh well, this is that was that's tough that it's so difficult. And to me, it may not be difficult to use. I'm like, oh yeah, naturally, I'm just going to click here, I'm going to click there, I'm going to do this, but it might not be natural for somebody to do so. And again, it's a piece of privilege because maybe I'm someone who grew up with technology from a younger age. That's not something like my grandparents would have gone through. They got technology much later in their life. They got cell phones and computers and stuff way later, like perhaps in their 50s and 60s kind of thing, or much later than that. So that's again an element of privilege where they didn't have that luxury to grow up with technology, and now the products that we're designing is kind of excluding them and pushing them further away from technology. So that's something that I realized a couple of years ago, and I'm like, oh, I should try to make, if I'm working on a feature or product or something that's going to the front, going directly to a consumer, try to make it as inclusive and accessible and as easy to use as possible. And that's my advice for anyone who's developing stuff.
Yeah, we need to really understand, and that's one of the things that was very much part of my urban planning degree, is we really were understanding stakeholder engagement. Who are all your stakeholders? And if you're going to have a meeting or a communication, understanding people may have limited childcare, like they can't just show up at your meeting, or their work hours or job don't allow them to participate, or there's a language barrier. And so how can you make things really accessible for people and be really clear about the everybody that is part of and should be part of the conversation, and notice the people who are missing, not just notice who's using the technology, but be aware of who's not, and if not, why not, and is there a cost to them not being included in this. And I think that just a small news story I saw the other day was that they were saying they're trying to fix things at the southern border of the US. And one of the rollout solutions was a new registration app. A lot of migrants don't have apps. They don't have smartphones. It's just not something they brought on their journey with them. And so a lot of them are very frustrated because they're like, okay, we get there's a new process. And for anybody with a phone, it's meant to be super easy. But if you don't have that phone, what's your starting point?
Pretty much, exactly. Like, what if you don't have a phone, an internet plan, or access to such resources, or someone in your circle does, you're kind of basically cut out. And that's another reason why I think diversity is very important in tech, because you kind of want to bring all the voices to the table when you're trying to design a product to make sure it's as inclusive as possible. And that can be like, people from underrepresented communities, people from different age groups, people from different cultures. Like, I think that's kind of just to your point, to understand which are the voices that are missing and why are they missing, and is this something that can essentially affect this product, because we have to understand who the end customer is, for who would be consuming the thing that you're working on.
Yeah.
So definitely.
What's your vision for women? What's your vision for other women? And how can we help support you in realizing that vision?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I'm new to the Women Techmaker program. I joined in November of 2022, so just a couple of months ago. Oh, that's great. So we joined at the same time. So I'm looking forward to kind of connecting with a lot of like-minded women, potentially in different communities. So far, I have been working a lot with students and within my own community, in my own city, alumni from my university. And I was looking to kind of expand my reach and see if I could help, make an impact beyond just the city that I live in, and the province that I live in. So I think the Women Techmakers platform is a really great way to connect with other women who are also doing a lot in their communities, such as yourself. Like, just putting together this show as well is a lot of work and effort. So thank you for doing that. And this is a way for us to connect and kind of talk to each other and grow and learn from each other. So that is what I'm looking forward to from the Women Techmakers program, is that you can, these connections, in addition to all the technical resources and the career coaching, other resources that are available for members and ambassadors to kind of learn from. Vision for women, I definitely think that we should have, try to get more women and underrepresented communities into tech. And that's kind of what I'm leaning towards building out more with the Women Techmakers program. This platform would essentially help to kind of spread the word more, bring more women, underrepresented communities into tech earlier, from schools, from high school, or even no matter what their background is, try to bring them in, show them what tech can offer. Tech is for everyone, and this is a good way to kind of showcase how we can be more inclusive and bring more folks into tech. So that's kind of where I'm looking to go with the Women Techmakers program, and also bringing in more ladies into tech.
Excellent. So with Women's International Women's Day, this is my first time really participating in an International Women's Day event, and I'm pleased to be here and pleased to be promoting and producing this event. What is your thought about International Women's Day, its value, its purpose, and a bit more on the theme of what Dare to Be means to you?
Absolutely. So I think International Women's Day is a really great time for all of us to kind of take a moment to celebrate all of the accomplishments that we've had so far. Just take a moment to understand like where we were, how far we've come, and celebrate that with each other. And also kind of, it's a reminder to see how much more work there is left to do, not just for women, but like I said, underrepresented communities as well, to kind of bring more of them into tech. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to celebrate, pause, reflect, celebrate, but also kind of refocus, or just reprioritize ourselves into how much more work there is left to do to make tech more inclusive and make tech for everyone. So that's kind of what International Women's Day means to me. With regards to Dare to Be, I really like the theme this year, because for me, 2023 as well, I want to try to step out of my comfort zone a little bit. So definitely, to do so, you need to have a little bit more, be a little bit more daring, to kind of want to step out of your comfort zone. A lot of times, perhaps during the pandemic as well, people got quite comfortable with their roles that they were doing. They're like, okay, I'm doing this. This is good for me, and potentially not pushing themselves to kind of maybe go to the next level. So Dare to Be is a reminder that you can push yourself to go to the next level. Try to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and step out of your comfort zone and see how far you can soar.
I love that. I also, one of my radio episodes I specifically actually did it on getting comfortable, because I do hear the phrase, get out of your comfort zone. And I understand like where that comes from, but I have found that when I want to do something that's hard or difficult, sitting on my couch with a hot cup of tea, and so, okay, I'm going to write that email, and like in my pajamas, like it's like sometimes like the things that, like, I just did 2 near cross country trips. I drove from Northeast Pennsylvania to Colorado. My dad left me there. I had to get out of a storage, and then he came pick me up 3 months later. I'd been gone to California in the meantime and for school and school stuff and to see my mom. And anyways, and then I drove a trailer back from Colorado to Northeast Pennsylvania. So 1,700 miles.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
That was not about getting out of my comfort zone. That was about getting into my comfort zone. I wanted to drive safely. I spent a lot of time going, go around me, go around me. I'm only going to go at my pace.
This is the fixed speed.
Yes, I can only go so far because this thing is packed and heavy, and my truck can only go so far. And we're going uphill, we're going around a curve, and so it's like about be safe. I was like wanting to protect my safety. And so yeah, I was doing kind of hard things ish, that were out of my comfort zone, but really like the way that I was successful in them was getting comfortable. And I think so, like many people think about like, oh, getting out of our comfort zone, I'm going to be uncomfortable. And it's like, yeah, but go ahead and like surround yourself by friends. Do it when you have the most energy. Like find a supportive community. Like know where your lifelines are to get help, and don't dismiss the power of a cup of tea.
Of course, I have one right now. Yeah. It's a little cold now, but still.
But you understand what I'm saying? Or the warm jacket, or like just being on your couch. Like sometimes it's like you're like, I've got something that's difficult to do, but I'm going to give myself everything that's self-supported and self-loving and self-care to make myself feel good about getting this done.
Absolutely. And just to your point, don't burn yourself out. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself as well. Like even while if you're pushing yourself to get to the next level, or master a new skill, or just take on something that you've never done before, don't do it at the expense of your health, of course. Definitely make sure that you're comfortable with what you're doing. Don't do anything that's completely uncomfortable for you. Take care of yourself first. Make sure that you are safe, that you are not burning yourself out completely while doing so. And just reminders, to check in with yourself and make sure that you're still okay.
Yeah. So that's what I say. So I think there's something about stretching, but there's also something about being really supportive of yourself and making sure that the crowd around you and your people know that they're cheering you on, and that you have all the resources that you could need available to you, and that even though we will get uncomfortable and we'll fall down tech holes and we're like, I don't understand this, that we're not to the point that we're going to quit.
Exactly. Yeah. And even if no one is cheering you on, you are your bigger supporter. So by all means, just hang in there for yourself.
True. And there are so many wonderful communities out there.
Oh my gosh. 100%, so many.
That the people in your inner circle may not get what you're doing, but you find your affinity group. I had no idea until this year how many Facebook groups were dedicated to women and women in GIS, women in tech, data science, data analysis. As soon as I decided I wanted to go down this data and this Master of Science path, and I just started looking around, whoa, I'm overwhelmed with how many opportunities and how many communities and how many things have come to support me in this journey. And that, yes, I can be my own cheerleader. And yes, some of the people, even in my inner circles, I think I love my mom, but she's like, what are you doing?
Definitely.
And therefore it's possible to find those like-minded people. So you're right. Maybe we all need to be at the end of the day, we only live with ourselves, but to know that we don't have to be alone in this. This is definitely, there's a wide and amazing community.
I'm going to say for this year, just in keeping with the International Women's Day theme of Dare to Be, I would just say like perseverance is your best friend. No matter what you're trying to pursue, whether you're, it's a personal goal, if it's something in, a health goal that you've set for yourself, persistence and being consistent will help you go a long way. So just a reminder to everyone, in keeping with the theme of Dare to Be, dare to be persistent, dare to be consistent, and you will achieve wonders.
I love that. And as an aspiring YouTuber, as well as programmer and language learner, all of those apply.
Yes, exactly. Like it's just a little one consistent piece after the other, like be persistent and stay consistent, essentially. Like just go one step at a time. Don't look at it like this is a huge mountain that I need to, summit, but just go one step at a time. And, when you look back at it a year later, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, I did so much. So